Hello and welcome to the Car Care Nut Shop. And the Car Care Nut Shop has been such a blessing, folks. I sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate all of you that watch the channel from day one, and supported us through this entire journey of getting this entire shop and the expansion and another expansion coming up. I wanted to share with you the story of this shop because I never, in my entire time, even when we started doing YouTube videos and whatnot, I never thought we were actually going to be here. That was never part of the plan, ever. It just came up in the moment and we explored it, and it just, God led the way and we followed. That is literally how this happened. Let me share with you some of this backstory of how we actually came up, found this place and everything. It was one day. This is how my days used to be before we actually started the shop. I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, drive an hour, go to work, which I had a dealership at the time, work till 2:30, 3 o'clock, drive an hour and a half now in traffic, home, sit down with the family for a little bit, start either filming or editing or doing something for the YouTube channel, and then go to bed around midnight and do it all over again. And on the weekend, Saturday turned into filming day, film the entire day. Sunday turned into editing day, edit almost the entire day. I got to a point where it's like, I work 7 days a week. I don't see my kids. I don't have time just to take a breath. It was getting overbearing. And this is the part that I will flat out say it. YouTube pays you money from ads. You guys all know that, and that's how this works. Obviously, we put a lot of effort in this and we do it for the right reasons, but there is some compensation for our time, which we like. It came to a point where I could actually live off of YouTube alone. I don't like to say this, but I'm a simple person. I come from a very poor background, not really anything glamorous or fancy. I can live on anything very simple. And at that point, it's like, that was enough. But my biggest thing is I like working on cars. I enjoy what I do. It has its moments that are not the case, but I enjoy what I do. So at the time, me and Mrs. Car Care and I had a conversation. It's like, I don't want to leave the dealership and just keep doing videos, because my videos are based off me working on cars. Well, if I'm not actively working on cars, I'm not given value anymore in my videos. And that's basically the point. Initially, the talk was, well, what if we just rent a small place, pull a lift, and just kind of do side jobs and a little work here and there. I told her, but that's not what I want. I actually want to service cars on a daily basis as a career, not just be having a little fake shop and just edit film videos and that's it. I want to work in the automotive industry. I like what I do. So that's when we made a decision to, what if we try to open a shop? And I'll be honest with you, the day we made that decision, I had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. And this is an admittance. Back when I worked at a dealership, I never fully understood what it took to run a business, what it took to actually be in the automotive industry from the business side and from kind of the ownership side. Never really understood that. Sometimes I criticized them. Sometimes I said, why do they do things this way? Now I understand. I'll be honest with that. We live and learn. So we came to that decision, but let me walk you through actually the process of doing this. I started things a little bit backwards. I'll admit to that. To me, in my simple mind, I don't have any business experience or anything, never claimed to have. I'm just learning as we go. Let's find a place, let's put a few things, some tools, and we'll just get going. That's not the case. So one night, it was probably 8, 9 o'clock on a weekend. Me and Mrs. Car Care Nut and the kiddos decided to go for a drive. Well, let's go look for places. The criteria for me was, I wanted a place that was 10 minutes or less from my house. I was tired of driving, wasting basically 2 hours and a half of my day every single day to drive to work and back. I gladly did it for the family, but this was a criteria. We went driving around in just random areas, just looking for signs like where shops are kind of congregated, see if there is places for rent. We went to see the first place. It was horrible, flat out. The rent was way too high. The place was completely run down, and there was literally 15, 20 shops around you, super loud area. I'm like, how are we going to occasionally film here? Plus, I am something you might not know about me. I'm an introvert. I am not a super social person. I like to have my own little place on the side, nice and quiet and secluded, so I can focus on what I do what I need to do, go home and have a nice day. So we wanted a secluded place. I didn't want the place on a main big street and busy and we wanted a quiet place. After a few days of looking around, driving around, nothing pans out. We were actually going to a restaurant, and that's the best part. We saw a tiny little for lease sign. I'm like, I don't even know what's for lease. Let's just drive through this little street I've never been to, and go drive. We drive to the end of the street. I see this big industrial kind of warehouses or whatever. There's one that says for lease, email or call. All right, well, we look at the place and like, let's send an email. I actually sent that email, and this is going to be very interesting. I sent that email at 3 o'clock in the morning because I was having a complication with the video, and it took me that long to edit it. The very next morning at, I believe, 9 o'clock, we got a reply. Mrs. Carcarrot saw it, and they told us you can come see the place at 3 o'clock. I actually took the day off. I just had an intuition. It's like, this is important. You have to do it. Took the day off, and we went to see the place. No expectation. We've never seen the place. No idea what that is. And here's a picture actually from that day. I just remember walking in. So the landlord here, God bless them, they are the nicest people on the planet. Per their request, I will not share any personal details of them. But this is a kind of grandfather who owns the building, and then the sons and daughters kind of manage the property, and now the grandsons are getting into managing the property. So this was the grandson that we kind of showing us the place. Me and Mrs. Carganot walked in. We literally drew the entire shop that day, yelling, very emotional. We were just overjoyed how we found a place that cost this much, that just checked all the boxes we wanted. We wanted a secluded place. We wanted a place that was 10 minutes from home. This was actually less than 10 minutes. We wanted a place that was large so we can have the space, because every other place we looked at was tiny. I mean, some places we looked at were 1,000 square foot. It's like you could barely fit a car in, barely two. But the problem with it was, that's how it looked like. It's just a storage warehouse. There was nothing. And at this point, I was completely oblivion to anything it requires code-wise and permits-wise and all that to run a shop. I have no idea, honestly. I just never thought about it. Just rent a place, put a lift, and let's go. I remember distinctly, and me, Mrs. Carcarrot, we have a thing that we always joke about it. We can read people's faces, people's reaction. We try to analyze it and kind of study the other person's reaction to things. And the reaction from the grandson who was showing us the place, super nice gentleman, by the way. I feel like he's responsible for this shop in one way or shape. I'll tell you why in a bit. He was looking at us like, what's up with these two crazy people? Why are they already dreaming and saying, we're going to put this here, we're going to put that here, this is perfect, we're running around, walking around. I mean, we were like 9-year-olds in a candy store, basically. At the end, he told us, well, you have to submit an application and see if you're approved. Cool. Well, let's do it. He's like, what is the name of your business? I have no idea, because we haven't gotten that far. Do you have what is the requirements for this business that you need to make? I have no idea. Immediately at that point, as soon as we got out, like, they're not going to lease us a place. We have no clue about anything. Flat out. Okay, well, we'll see what happens. Mrs. Carcarrot has a saying, and it's so true. If it's God's plan, it will happen no matter what. She's very right. That's what we believe. We got a call later on. Now we were meeting not with the grandson, with his parents. We went there. I have to say, it was a little intimidating because now they're asking us a lot of questions about the business. And at this point, I felt like a little bit attacked, but now I understand that they were just trying to make sure they understand what kind of business we are trying to run here. And that is normal. I understand that. They basically told us they do not want an automotive repair shop here because of the mess, the noise, the cars outside, the whole 9 yards. And I basically told them, well, I actually like the fact that you don't allow us to park cars outside, because I wouldn't sleep my night knowing that other people's cars are trusted to me and I'll park them outside open to the public, whoever can walk up to it. I actually rather keep my cars inside. They're like, are you sure? Because every single automotive shop around us has the junkyard around it. We don't want that in our property, and I get it. They're very, very on top of their property. It's a very nice property. They're well taken care of. So I explained to them everything. And that's when I actually saw this as this might be actually happening. We're not dreaming this. This may actually happen. And this is when I sat down, and something about me, I am a thinker and I obsess over the tiny little details. So I actually drew a business plan. And I remember that business plan starting with google.com, how do you write a business plan? Initially, when you read it, it's like, this sounds very silly. I'm just kind of writing down my thoughts. I'm not a writing type person. I just remember things. Then I actually started. And that's when I stemmed away from, let's just open a shop, fix some Toyotas, and let's do this, to actually, what am I trying to do here? What is the plan? I always say this in other videos, but I had no plan. But that's always the point where things are getting real. What is the plan? The plan was simple. I wanted to create a shop that offered something different. I've worked at a dealership. I've seen how other automotive shops operate. I wanted something different. I believe there was nothing special about this shop if it's just another shop. I wanted to open an automotive shop that operated like a dealership, but without the dealership bad stuff. And the fluff, I call it the fluff, the extra stuff that complicate things. But at the same time, I wanted to offer something that didn't exist around me within a 10-mile radius. Maybe it exists somewhere else. And that's when we started with the operating principle of this shop. I actually wrote it down, and I still have those papers that I wrote it down on. See, I worked with Toyota for a long time. This is something we don't discuss at dealerships, but Toyota has a way. It's called TPS, Toyota Production System, although it's meant for car production. But it's actually, you can apply that same principle elsewhere. Two things that I took from that, studied it heavily, and I wanted to implement it in this shop. First one was Kaizen, or Kaizen, or somebody will correct me. I'm not saying that right. I'm not Japanese, sorry. Continuous improvement. We will never settle and say, things are great, we don't need to change nothing, just keep the cruise control on. You can't do that. You always have to change things to make them better. That is the number one principle. The second one is, this was the most difficult one to figure out, and we're still figuring it out actually, JIT, or just in time. See, Toyota builds their cars not by piling parts in a warehouse and pull from it when we run down, let's just buy more. No, they actually assign every single part for every single car, and that part arrives at the station where they're going to assemble it exactly at the right time that it's needed. That way you don't have all this stuff sitting around. Something about automotive shops you always see. You look in the background, they have all these belts on the wall and giant cabinets full of hardware and supplies and random parts and random batteries and filters. I never wanted that. We don't have that here. You want a filter? I order a filter, just one. You want a wiper? I order one wiper. You want a battery? I order one battery specifically for that car. If we end up not using it, it goes right back. That was the operating principle of the shop. Then come the next, this is when things went not south, they went so south that we started turning the whole compass back to north. The licensing and the business license and the code enforcement, and changing this building that was basically a shell with a floor into an automotive shop. I never realized how complicated that was, and how much requirements there was, and how unforthcoming I will a little bit get on the red tape here. How unforthcoming villages are to new businesses. I mean, it's very difficult. You go there, you're trying to get a simple answer. No answer. Village of Homer Glen. It's, if you're not from this area, it's a small village surrounded by many other villages that are very heavy on commerce, and they have giant malls and all this construction going on. Village of Homer Glen, there is not much going on. It's a very quiet town, very safe town, which I love that part. There isn't a big push for commerce, so their departments are not very business friendly. They're not really, they haven't figured out everything yet. So when I went to apply, okay, we want to open this business. Okay, fill out this application. I'm like, oh, that's very simple. Of course, before that, I started with an accountant who was referred to me by a friend. We started the legalities of things behind the scenes, register the company, whatever, which was the biggest hurdle was the name. We spent probably 2 weeks, me and Mrs. Carcare, not debating the name. Kept going back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. I mean, it was such a difficult thing where I got to a point where it's like, okay, the name is an important thing, but we can't keep debating this. Let's keep it simple. The channel's name is the Car Care Nut. The viewers have called me TCCN here and there. Let's just call it TCCN Automotive. We're done. I just looked at Mrs. Car Care and she looked at me and was like, why couldn't we have figured this out 2 weeks ago? Yeah, it's called process. We went through it. So I filled out paperwork for the village business license. Great, you'll get it in the mail in 2 weeks. I'm like, that's it? Oh yeah, for the business license. But now we have to go through the occupancy permit. I'm like, English, please. What is that? Well, in order for the village to actually allow your business to open its door, we need to do an inspection of your building to make sure that the building is code compliant. Because initially the plan was, oh, we're going to throw some epoxy on the floor, we're going to paint the walls, and off we go. Exactly. The inspector showed up. Inspector opens the door. He looks at the building and he's like, you're going to open an automotive shop here, right? Like, yeah, that's the plan. He's like, did you sign the lease already? Like, yeah. He's like, can you reverse that by any chance? I'm like, why? He's like, because this is not set up as an automotive shop. You have to basically start from not zero, below zero. That was the crushing point. That was the point where me, Mrs. Carcarnot, we literally got depressed. It's like, what did we get ourselves into? Number one. Number two, is this even going to happen? Like, this was the most crushing point in this. So here's what the inspector actually wanted. Number one, every automotive shop in the United States, or at least in the state of Illinois, needs something called a triple basin. I'm not into plumbing, so if you know more about this, don't quote me on this stuff, but you need drains in the floor for, in case there's oil or fuel that gets washed into this drain, the triple basin separates this, so this oil and fuel does not end up in the sewer water. That's the whole point. I'm like, okay, well, but how do we go about that? He just looks at me and goes like, you need to tear the floor down to install the triple basin, install the drains, and then tie it up to the sewers, and that is just the beginning. There is fire requirements, there is everything that you're going to do here. You need EPA code, you need all kinds of stuff. It's like, are you new to this? I'm like, I mean, I want to say I have been in the automotive industry for long, but apparently I was on the wrong side of it. Yeah, that's when things got real. And at that point, I contacted a contractor friend of mine. I told him, would you be able to help me with this project? Because this is a lot bigger than what I initially anticipated. He rose up to the occasion. I still appreciate him a lot. Then the next problem. This was a warehouse. We don't have any electric that is meant to run multiple 220 lifts. So the panel, the electrical panel, was tiny. It was just like it was already full as it is. Plus, the biggest problem that came up in this shop was the zoning. So apparently in Illinois, or at least in the village of Homer Glen, I understand it's Illinois, I might be wrong about this, automotive repair does not have its own zone. Well, I guess we're not special enough. So this shop was zoned as commercial or C1 or something like that, but not really automotive repair. In order for you to have an automotive repair shop, you need a special operating permit for zoning. And that's when everything went from difficult and kind of doors are closing to we have a bank vault door where we're trying to open. It just become extremely complicated and difficult because, okay, we got past the construction part, not past it, I mean past the, we have to do a lot of construction to, you can't even start construction until you get the zoning corrected. And that's when things got really difficult. So we applied for a special operating permit. I'm sorry, I call it a special operating permit, special use permit. So the first thing the village told me, they gave me a super complicated form that half of it made no sense. I'm like, I think I emailed the village like 200 times. No joke. What is this? What do you want me to put here? I have no idea what you're talking about here. You need to read the village code. I go read the village code. It's like, hold on, let me pull my English degree here because I am an immigrant. I have no idea. This is very complicated. Until we got to a point where they informed me, okay, your application finally, after a million emails that you send us, a million questions, your application is complete. Here's the process. We have to make a public announcement or public notice that for all the neighbors around you, that you intend to change this place with a special use permit into an automotive shop. There will be a public hearing, and this is just the zoning committee. Once they approve, if they approve, then we're going to meet with the board of trustees of the village, because they will also do another public hearing. Public will be able to come in and make a comment, and then we will determine if we're going to even allow you to start construction or not. Let's just say that that process was extremely complicated because of a single neighbor, which huge respect to them. They're actually very nice folks, but at that time they didn't know me. I didn't know them. They just heard automotive repair. They didn't want it. Actually, neighbors right across from the shop, they objected. Usually, like they told me, this is just standard formality. We'll just go through it. They just want to understand what the scope of your business is and go through the process. I like process. Process what makes us civilized. Until there was an objection. I mean, there was a very large letter that came from the neighbors. They were not happy that there's multiple repair shops here. Why do we have to open another one with the noise and the junkyard around and the oil and all the people and everything? They just didn't want it because we are a little bit of close proximity to that neighbor. That pushed everything almost 3 months because we had to listen to the concerns of the neighbors, actually meet them in person, try to talk it out. Initially it didn't work out because they just would not take our word that we are respectful people. We're not out to make any disturbance to the neighbors. Of course, neighbors are very important to me. That stalled the process a lot, to a point where we were starting to lose hope. I mean, we haven't even started and we're already getting pushed this much. Finally, we got through the zoning permit and the zoning committee. That was the first approval that we need. We got a really good score there. That was the point where I was not very into politics. I'm not into politics at all. I think it's very complicated. I don't understand it. As long as my family have food and shelter over their head, I'm happy with everything else. That's when we got to the board of trustees, and apparently the trustees of a village are politicians and they run elections and all this stuff. I've never been in a board meeting in my life, so we went there and I had to give a talk. Now, I was very nervous at that time because I don't know what we're getting ourselves into at this point. There was still objections from the neighbors. They tried to come with a solution, then the solution fell apart. Then the neighbor just all of a sudden said, you know what, we're good, don't worry about it. Just objection kind of retracted or whatever. Okay, well, great. We just delayed everything 3 months, no problem. Well, that was the day that the Board of Trustees decided, very close vote. They almost voted us out for some reason. I guess they wanted to show their support to the people that live in Home and Glen, which I get, that's honorable, but they gave us approval. That same night, this was a meeting at late at night, 7:30, I was standing with the person that did the permits for the village. I told him, please, we are 3 months behind. We are just way extending our welcome with the landlord, because they did tell us, if you end up not getting this, we'll cancel the contract, just pay us for the time that they were there, and that's it. Because they also understand I'm not going to be in a long contract, lease contract, when I can't even open my business here. The next morning, God bless that person. I don't know if they would be okay with mentioning their name, but that person, I don't know if they're watching, God bless them, because he shook my hand that night, told me tomorrow morning, 7:30 in the morning, swing by the village. I will have your permits ready. I will not delay you a day more. You can get started with construction. There's multiple inspections throughout the construction, but you can start. Now, I skipped a little bit forward. Construction cost is monumental. We're tearing down concrete. We're putting the triple basin that is very expensive. We're repouring concrete. We're adding a lot of drains, paint, and I never realized how expensive paint is, and epoxy floor, and the whole 9 yards. This was very nerve-wracking. I took a loan to start all this. It was very difficult because I am taking a loan to start a construction that I don't even know if we're going to be able to start. But at the same time, okay, I'm not going to wait until they say yes or no to start taking a loan. Now we're delayed even more and more and more, because I'm already paying rent now for a place that I only can park my cars in. This was God's plan, that's all I'm going to say, because everything worked out in the end. With all the hurdles, we started construction. Day one of construction, we had problems. We hit a wire in the floor that didn't appear in the whatever mapping they do in the floor. And things started from there. I documented some of it. I'll leave some of these videos here. But fast forward to when the construction was done. That was a very nerve-wracking process. So while the construction was going on and in this whole thing, of course, I was still working in a dealership. God bless them, because I was not very focused. Focused on a lot of things, and of course I informed them that there will come a point where I will be leaving the dealership, so God bless them, they were very patient with me. While the construction was going on, this was the time where we were just coming out of the pandemic and things were not very available. That was the next problem. So this was around April when we started construction. We had a projected opening date sometime in June. Actually, it was the first week of June. The initial projected opening date before the delays was actually March, but that never happened because of the delays. I started wanting to buy the equipment, but the biggest problem was I had no place to store the equipment. We had construction going on here, and at the same time that all this was going on, I was still have a full-time job. I was still filming videos and editing in the whole 9 yards. Now I was working 14 to 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, because too much was going on. And I apologize for my family. I'm like, you got to give me some patience. We're starting something, hopefully God approves of and things go well. I started contacting manufacturers of lifts, compressor, everything that I can think of. But the problem was, can I pay for this stuff and you guys get it, because everything was not available readily, and you hold it on for me until this date. The projected, I think, date was sometime in May. Mid-May was when we were able to bring stuff into the shop. The epoxy floor was going to be done. That was difficult because not many people will wait, you want to buy something, you want me to store it for you until you're ready? But because I had to do that, because I can't just ring them up, hey, send me 2 lifts. Yeah, they're in production, it'll be a month out. Can't do that. So I was blessed and privileged enough to work with many companies that were actually willing to do that for me. One of them was Benpack. God bless them. They're not sponsored or anything, but they were actually willing to do that for me. And I explained to them, I have a YouTube channel, opening a shop. God help us all. So they were one of the companies that were willing to do that. Snap-on was another one that was willing to do that. Then come the most difficult part for me. It was a very emotional time in my life because we were coming up on May. This is where we actually have to start setting up the shop. Not construction was about to be done. It was little odds and ends they were finishing up, but the construction was wrapping up. The equipment were starting to come in. Now I need to actually dedicate full time to the shop to start building the shop. I mean, all the stuff came in unassembled. I had to figure out the logistics. I have to sit down and figure out the JIT, parts ordering stuff. I didn't want to open until we have figured out most of this stuff. So the decision was I was going to leave the dealership the first week of May. I've already put my advance notice. I think since construction started, I put my notice that, hey, I may be leaving in May or June. So that time has come. And I remember this moment. It was a very emotional moment. They knew there was no way out of it because, when you worked at a dealership so long, they're such good people. The owner came down and it was a very emotional moment for me. But at the same time, it was very nerve-wracking because here I'm living a very long career that I worked very hard to get to the point that I was at. And I was just walking away from it for the unknown. I don't know what was going to happen. Here's how that went. This was the best part. I said I'm going to leave my job at the dealership. I was going to take the family on a vacation, a much deserved vacation after everything I've put them through. And when we come back, I was going to come back refreshed, and we're going to put all our efforts into starting the shop. Well, God had other plans. God wanted me to take a longer rest. Initially, we went for 3 days. I come back from this vacation. The next day, I have COVID. See you in 2 weeks. It's just God's plan. I can't say no to it, and that's how things work. So, stayed home for 2 weeks, and then I was fine. Started working on the shop. I mean, this is the point where, honestly, Mrs. Carcarnett used to tell me, why are you so stubborn? Why don't you allow your friends to help you? I just didn't want to ask anybody. I used to come to the shop. It was an empty building with multiple boxes and all kinds of stuff that we've been ordering and slowly coming in. Come to the shop probably at 9 o'clock in the morning. I am not a morning person. 9 o'clock in the morning, I'll stay there till midnight. Just arranging stuff, sitting on the computer, editing videos. At some point, I'll show you a few of the videos that we started filming in the shop at that point. But I would literally, the best part is, I have to admit it, how that was. I may have a picture or two, I'll post it here if I find them. I had this very desk in the middle of this giant 4,000 square foot warehouse with a chair, one chair, which was a very fancy, I think it was a Lazy Boy chair, and a laptop. That's where I started TCCN Automotive, flat out. That's where I wrote the initial plans of what we're going to do once the business is actually running. That's where I edited my videos. That's where I practically lived in the shop for a while until we figured this out. I think it was a 2-3 week period where I just go there in the morning because now I am freaking out because I have no day job. What do I do with myself? I have too much time on my hand. I have to do something. Well, the shop kept me very busy. Then we had to set a start date. There was a lot of logistics. And we wanted to put a date so we can announce it on the channel and see what happens. We opened the scheduler a week before the shops opened, just to see, are we going to open? Although the first week was already booked because I had some customers that I've serviced their cars before on the side that already wanted jobs done, and they kind of filled the first week. But then at that point, I was researching the software that we're going to use. This was very difficult because there's so many softwares that they cater for everything. I interviewed a lot of them. Some of them I really annoyed them with a lot of questions, and they just never got back to me. God bless them. I can be annoying sometimes with my OCD. So Shop Monkey, a name that is interesting, but they were the software that actually worked for what I needed. They were very streamlined software. I didn't want customers. That was part of my JIT. I wanted to know what was coming into the shop before it even comes in. And that's how we started our online system. Our shop doesn't operate like most shops. We give you an estimate before you come in, before you even make an appointment. We work by appointment only because I wanted to know, what do we have coming in? You want brakes? I will order the brakes the week leading up to that appointment, and I will have these parts sitting a few days before your appointment. Cancellation, no-show, whatever the case, send these parts back the very next day. I didn't want parts piling up here because I wanted to implement JIT as much as I can. Then come the last-minute complications. The floor, we had an issue with the floor. We actually documented that in a video. I'll leave those couple videos here. First, when we had the issue, and then when we fixed it. Then the lifts. I may have chosen an incorrect company to install the lifts initially because they delayed things so much. And then when they came in, they were a little bit unprofessional, did a lot of mistakes in the install. Things didn't go well. And at some point, I was so disappointed. It's like, why? We're trying to do everything right. Why do we get this? But that's how it is. God bless them. They were good people. They tried their best, but we did have some issues. Here's the problem. We did rewire the entire shop in the construction, the entire thing. So I had to wait for the lifts to be installed. Then the electrician was going to come out and do them. That got delayed so much that we actually opened the scheduler. It was June 1st when we opened the scheduler, and June 8th we started, something like that. June 1st when we opened the scheduler, I'll tell you how that went. That day was one of the most interesting days for me and Mrs. Carcarenot because we had no idea what we were doing, honestly. That day, the lifts were not installed. Very, very nerve-wracking moment. So I filmed that video. The video was filmed. The lifts were not installed yet. I had to actually go and record that later. And if you notice in the video that I actually recorded for the reveal of the shop, the lifts are actually not wired up. The electrician have not come out yet to wire them. I don't know if anybody noticed that. That was interesting. So we had 1 week to figure out everything. That's it. We have announced it. And that day of the announcement, so shop was open 9 to 5. I wanted these hours, no weekends. That's something I wanted from the beginning, to make a change, have time for the family and myself. We released the video on a Wednesday. I believe it was a Wednesday. I'm pretty sure it's a Wednesday. Giving you guys how to make an appointment and whatnot, seeing what was going to happen. Me and Mrs. Carcarenot were sitting. We set up a phone system. That was a whole different thing. We were ready to make appointments, but we had actually no idea how things were unfold. One person going to call? I hope so. I mean, we had no idea. We had the first week figured out appointment-wise. Beyond that, we had nothing, zero. And we just did all this investment. We did all this work, and I quit my job. And oh my God, I was so nervous. Anyways, moving past that. We released the video at 10:45 in the morning. That's how I usually release my videos. Not 10:46, not 10:44, 10:45. That's how I've always done it. Released the video, and we're sitting by the phone. And so you had 2 ways to schedule an appointment: either call or you send a request online. 10:45 comes around. Now we are on high alert. We don't know what's going to happen. 10:50 comes. Phone is quiet. Online messaging thing is quiet. Nothing. Not a single appointment. To a point where I actually got to a point where I picked up the phone just to hear the ring. Hey, is the phone working or do we have a problem? Nothing. Like, we went past the panic into, okay, well, it's not that bad. We got the first week figured out. We'll start some advertisement. As soon as I said that word advertisement, the phone rang. Mrs. Carcarenot answers. So we had a phone system that could kind of have a hold line or a queue or whatever you want to call it. The second phone rang. I answered. The first message popped up. Let's just say by the time 5 o'clock came about, my voice was gone. Mrs. Carcarenot's voice was gone. because we started talking from right around 11:15, something in that window, all the way till 5 o'clock, nonstop. That's because of you guys. You guys are amazing. I just have to say that. That day, we had 150 requests online, and I don't even know how many phone calls. It was nonstop. We filled up the entire month of June and half of July on day one. That's how blessed we are, and that's how thankful we are for you guys. And actually, one of those people was Jose, who is now, of course, a member of the team here. By the time 5 o'clock came around and the phone starts reverting to voicemail automatically, and we said this because our kids, we had somebody watching our kids and all that, we were just in disbelief how this started. I mean, you guys are just, words cannot describe how thankful we are for that. Then we back to reality the next day. This is where I told Mrs. Karkirnat, you have to stay on the phone doing the appointments and whatnot, and I have to get back to figuring out how we're actually going to open the shop in 7 days. And the other thing was, we have invited our pastor and some family members on the following Saturday, because we were going to open Monday, for a get-together in the shop. We wanted to pray. We wanted to get together with our pastor and kind of ask God for his blessing before we actually open. Then the real problem started. The floor. The floor was horrible. I mean, we had a problem with the epoxy floor. It was staining everywhere. Oh my God. The entrance of the shop was just unbelievable. Like, how are we going to do this? We have people coming in, and on top of that, we have customers that are going to start coming in. It was unbelievable. Stains everywhere, and things were going real south. So Saturday, we had to get together with the family at 2 o'clock here in the shop. At 7 o'clock in the morning, against my non-morning nature, I was at Home Depot trying to find solutions. The solution we came up with, I'm actually proud of it. It's gonna sound funny, but you gotta do what you gotta do, right? I bought the floor, and I put it myself actually that day leading up to the family meeting. It is these foam blocks. They're meant for gyms. They're not even flooring. They're just a foam block that you just put in an area, and you can, in case you drop stuff, so you wouldn't hurt the floor. I got those. I'll admit, because they were the cheapest thing available, because we were already maxed out on everything. I did the entire waiting area at least. Would you believe that actually held for 3 months until we actually got the whole floor redone? We had to close for a week and whatnot, but that's a different story. Got that done, went out, get the food, get everything ready for the family to come in and my pastor, and we ended that day. And I was just in shock. Those, for the next 2 days, so this was Saturday, Sunday, into Monday, I don't think I slept much. I was just thinking, did we miss anything? Do we have everything we need? And I remember the week before that, I went to the dealership to buy like oil and some filters just to get us going, some fluids. Do we have everything we need? Oh my God, we're starting day one, and I hope we have everything. I hope we have thought of everything, but there come a point where you just have to go in faith. I mean, I obsess over the tiniest details, but I just laid it at the feet of Jesus, and I told him, you lead the way in the end, so let's do this. Monday morning was a very emotional day, the day of the actual opening of the shop. We had no sign, because the village is very difficult about signs. We haven't even gotten a chance to put anything on the window, and we just opened. Let's do this. Me and Mrs. Karkirnat at the time, she basically built the appointment system and the process that we have, because I was in the shop, I have to fix cars. And day one is when I realized I do need a helper, because if I need somebody to hold something, I only have 2 hands. I need a helper here. And that's when we were so busy with the shop. And day one, we had some complications. The system went down, the phones went down, and this was not working out. we had a lot of complications, we quite honestly. We were very delayed in a lot of projects that we were working on, and folks were very patient, and I really appreciate them. Actually, remember car one on the shop was a Toyota Corolla. We actually filmed part of that as well. I don't even know where to look for people. I mean, everybody I know works an hour away. I can't take people from the dealership I worked at. That's not right. There was a friend through church that you guys knew him, Eros. We approached Eros, see if he was interested. He was into photography and videography. He worked a little bit at a dealership. So approached him. He was very interested and he wanted to do this. He actually started July 5th, I believe. So I was a month alone. That was not fun because my only helper was Mrs. Karkiernat and the phone and people. And yeah, that was difficult. Fast forward, I want to say until January of 23. Eros got to a point where he wanted a different career path, and God bless him, great guy. He helped us a lot. We worked so much, but I learned a lot from that because I was basically the first employee I ever had. I didn't know how this works. We were so blessed that the day that he gave me his notice, I was like, oh my God, we're going to go back to the same problem. I have no helper. Like, I don't know, and I'm very particular about the people I trust and I work with because I want somebody I work with well and I trust. And this was possibly the biggest blessing of the shop. The person, Eros left on Friday. The next person that came around, who is my brother, Matthew, started on Monday. This is how God plan works. I love it. I am so blessed by that because we didn't actually have a downtime. Actually, 2 people started that day, that Monday. Matthew, who's actually the shop foreman now, just my brother, Matthew. I just have to say that. And then the same day, Mateo, who was actually somebody we knew. He was a family friend, very young kid, kind of in between jobs, and I knew Mateo was potentially not going to stay long term, but he came as a helper as well. Matthew was a mechanic. This was the first mechanic we hired. But at the same time, when I was kind of accepting application and whatnot, somebody else applied who, at the time when Matthew started, and I'm like, well, we only need one person. That said, Mrs. Carcaro told me, why do you only need one person? Why don't you have 2? These are very qualified people. Why don't you at least interview the person? Okay, well, let's do it. Let's give it a shot. And that's when Renee came around. And that's when TCCN Automotive completely changed. I mean, the heading that we were going completely changed because now I transitioned from I'm just a mechanic that occasionally writes a few estimates and answers a few phone calls to now I have people working here, career people that their families depend on this place. I never thought of it this way. It was just me and my family and we'll figure it out. Now I have people working here. This is their source of income. They work full time. That's when things got real. This is when Renee came around. Renee is also my brother. I mean, these 2 guys worked so hard and they still do every single day. They are full-fledged master technicians. At the time they started, they were not. But today, they are full-fledged master technicians. I had the privilege of working with them every single day. They are the best. I just have to say that. This is where we immediately ran into the new problem. Lift space. There's 3 of us now. Each one needs a lift. We only had 2 lifts and the drive-on lift. So we bought more lifts and things slowly became over. Just now we have 3 people instead of 1. You can take more appointments, and things started to balloon a little bit, and we were getting concerned because Mrs. Karkiernat basically put my kids on cruise control and let's run our business. And that's when we came to the point where we need someone to answer the phone and set the scheduling. And this is a very difficult task. Mrs. Karkiernat, on top of doing that, she was also taking care of my kids because I was working day and night, at least during the week. And also, there's back-end stuff to a business. the accounting stuff, the bookkeeping, the errands that the business needs, and all that. We can't be both tied down, and that's how it felt. And that's when Melly came around. Melly was possibly the greatest addition to this team, and I just remember when she did, it was like Mrs. Carker and I was training her a little bit just to make sure she knows what how our system works and everything. I mean, Melly picked it up from the same day that she started. It almost felt like this was meant to be. It just happened. And the addition of Melly to the team has been one of the best things. First, now Mrs. Carker can run the variables of the business without being tied down to a phone, because it's important that we answer our phone and we get back to our customers. And then, most importantly, she's available for my kids, because we have 2 young kids, and we do all this for them. So what's the point of leaving them to the side? We had to for some time, but after that, things just exceeded anything I have ever thought they were going to be, and we never thought that this was ever going to be a thing. I started in the automotive industry so long ago that I never even thought one day I will be a shop owner. I never thought it. And that, in big part, has to do with you guys. So once more, thank you so much for watching my channel, for all this. I never thought this was ever going to happen. But things took off from there. We added now 3 more technicians. One of them actually started as a helper, Diego, and moved on to be a technician. He's on his way to become a master technician. Diego is awesome. I love Diego. I have to say that. He is a fine gentleman that works very hard. Before hiring Luis is when we got this space. We were kind of limited with space. We had no more place to film. We had no more place to do anything. We were maxing out on space. So we expanded to this unit, and there's another unit that we're using for storage of cars and parts and whatnot. So when I got here, I moved my stuff here. Now we have an empty bay where I used to work. So Luis and Matthew and Renee, they come from the same Toyota dealership, and that's the best part. They just knew each other, and the opportunity opened. Luis is such a hard worker. He's actually a very young gentleman. He is well on his way. I actually will say it. He's a master technician. He's got this. He's there. Luis is awesome. I mean, I'm blessed with such a great team here. That I think is the best thing about TCCN Automotive, is the team here. Then Caleb. Caleb is someone that I've worked with at a Toyota dealership. He is a master technician. We've been talking for a long time, even before Luis started. Hey, did you want to come work here? He's like, well, I'm happy where I'm at. Let's see how things go. We kind of went back and forth. But then, again, it was God's plan. Caleb started here. And that's when the new shift of direction, because now we work so well together that the team in the shop just, it's the culture. And this is something I always dreamed about. I wanted a good shop culture. There's a good shop culture, there's a bad shop culture. I think we have a really good shop culture. They're all friends, they all get together, they all, not just for work, outside work, they are friends. And then one of the greatest additions to the team, Amir, who is our parts manager. So here's something interesting about Amir. Amir is a viewer, and at the same time, the way we got to know him is he was a parts manager at a parts store nearby. I'm not going to name that store, but we worked together. We bought parts from them here and there. And when he found out that our YouTube channel, and then he kind of put 2 and 2 together, he stopped by at the shop. It's like, you guys are the Car Kira channel, right? It's like, I bought my Tacoma based on your videos, and I didn't even know that we worked together. So we became close friends. He's such a genuine, just detail-oriented guy that he would basically, so we have a little thing here at TCCN. We still do this, and I don't think we'll ever stop. At the end of the day, we don't just, all right, see you, we'll see you tomorrow, everybody leaves. We actually huddle up and talk. Sometimes we stay beyond closing time, just talking. That's just how we are. He would show up sometimes and join that talk. He's just such a nice guy. So he really liked this place. And I always, from the beginning, we always used to talk about, Amir would be great for parts here because he already chives with everybody. We already talk, everybody knows him. So there come a point where I just approached Amir and I told him, do you want to join this team, brother? Because we kind of already feel like you're a part of the team, flat out. And at that time, and the reason for that is Jose was running the parts department as well. And let's just say this way, although Jose has UPS experience, I think Jose, that he has some logistics experience, but that was a long time ago, and it was getting overwhelming for Jose. Let's put it this way, because you can either film, edit, or run parts, and it was getting a bit much. So Amir's addition to the team was such a great one, and I love that Amir from day one, he loves the JIT principle and the Kaizen principle that we try to implement here, and I feel like our team is complete now. We all get together very well. I love it. Speaking of Jose, let's talk about Jose. We haven't talked about Jose's story yet. So here's the interesting part. Jose was a viewer. I'll just say the story flat out. Jose was a viewer who actually, I did the pre-purchase inspection on his GX that he has, and then we did some work. I think we did front struts or something like that. We knew that Jose was a photographer. He was actually a real estate photographer, and he owns his own company. He's a professional photographer, videographer as well. So initially, when we hired Mateo had a huge interest in technology and videography and whatnot. So since he is a family friend and we knew him, I wanted him to eventually learn how to film and do this stuff to help me out with the channel stuff. So I talked with Jose. I told him, hey, is it possible for you to train Mateo to see what comes out of it, give him some guidance, maybe join us in some film sessions. This is when we started filming car reviews and whatnot. So he agreed. We'd come, I think it was on Monday or one day a week. He'd come in a few hours, guide Mateo, help him. But then come to a point where Mateo actually, because I knew Mateo was not going to stay with us for a long time, because he was kind of in between jobs. He finally got into the job that he wanted, that he got his education for. So he gave me his notice. That's when I talked with Jose. I'm like, hey, since my main guy that was supposed to be my main guy is leaving, I mean, I can do the filming myself, but it's nice to be more efficient and we get things done quicker. And of course, having a professional videographer and photographer is a lot. It's nice. It's very nice. Let's put it this way. Would you help me part-time? Like, we'll just, when I film, come in, we'll film, we'll do our thing. And every once in a while, I still film alone and whatnot. Then come to a point where I started talking with Jose. I'm like, do you want to work here full-time as an editor and videographer? And one conversation led to another. Jose started in July. It seems like majority of our people started in July. I don't know why that is the case, but Jose started in July of 23, and we've been together ever since. It's a great journey. Me and Jose, we've been through a lot, filming some of the videos and some of the situations, and there's never a dull moment at TCCN Automotive. I mean, the shop is live, and I enter every morning. I'm not a morning person, I'll say that. I usually enter right at 9 on the dot, sometimes beyond that. But the shop culture here is something that I never thought this was going to be the case. I mean, I thought we were going to stay just me, maybe a helper. We'll just take a few cars a week and just keep going, film a few videos, and we're done. Now it's coming to a point where the shop is turning into such a busy shop that it's like, oh my God, I have to dedicate a lot of time to actually figure out the scheduling and what's next and what's going on, where we're not back to where we are, where I'm working 16 hours a day. I'm super happy here, but it is getting very, very busy here. And I cannot emphasize how blessed and how thankful I am for this. I mean, I love every single day here. There's days where it's gloomy and tiring and difficult because there's a lot of decisions that you got to make as a shop owner that sometimes they're difficult and everything, of course, there's with everything. But through it all, I love every moment of this. I mean, it's been such a journey. I never thought it was going to go this way, but it did. And that in big part is thanks to you guys. So from my family at home, from my family at TCCN Automotive, and from everyone that had a small or a big part in this, thank you for watching the channel. Thank you for encouraging me. Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for watching my videos. I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. And here's to many years at the channel and TCCN Automotive, and a special thanks to the team here at TCCN Automotive. I mean, these guys and Melly, they just work so hard. And the culture we've built here, it's not just me, we've all built this culture. It's a culture of brotherhood and just, we don't just work here. This is our place. And this is something I always wanted the guys to feel like, this is your place. If you see something wrong, you want to do something about it, let's talk, let's get it done. That's part of Kaizen that we started with. And things have been very interesting. Let's put it this way, there's never a dull moment at TCCN Automotive. We always have, we have a saying here, we work very hard, but we also enjoy every single moment. That's the good ones and the bad ones, they all cancel each other out, and we're all happy here. Folks, once more, thank you so much for watching the channel. Thank you so much for supporting us in the shop here. Thank you for all of those that just came in just to say hello, shake our hands, and from the beginning and still till now, thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts. Folks, I hope this video was helpful and informative. I hope you're doing something new. If you like it, consider giving it a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing to the channel. Check out some other videos. Until the next video, folks, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and you have yourself a wonderful day.